My husband, 37 male, used to work to support the family while I, 36F, stayed home taking care of our 2-year-old daughter. Last month, he lost his job and told me he felt exhausted and wasn't eager to do anything. I said okay and offered to work so he could look after our daughter at home and get some rest until he feels better. By the way, our daughter goes to daycare, so it's mainly some housework and picking her up. But he said no, he needs his time to be completely free. I got furious because this means either I work while also taking care of our daughter, or our family will face significant financial pressure. But I stepped back anyway and had a hell of a month doing everything while he hung out with his friends and played PS5. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and told him he had to choose between being a house husband or divorce. He chose the first, but it felt forced. I keep questioning myself, was I too harsh? Any good advice would be appreciated. Next day, I came home from work to find his mother there. I was shocked because he hadn't told me anything. She started picking up our daughter and doing the housework. This is driving me crazy because I have never gotten along with her well, and my husband knows this. I feel like he asked her to come so he could continue being childish, disregarding how I feel. His mother raised him as a single mom, and according to my husband, she was very protective and planned to live with him for his whole life. He felt suffocated, so he went to a university far from home and reduced contact with her. I remember one time she came and got sick, vomited, and I cleaned up her mess. Suddenly, she asked her son to come and told him that her underwear was dirty and needed to be washed by hand that very night, even though we had a washing machine. My husband and I had agreed that our marriage was ours and that she wouldn't come and live with us. He broke his promise. I'm considering divorce, but I'm worried our daughter is too young to understand it. I've thought about holding on for a while, but these days of living with her are already driving me crazy, and I don't see a quick end. I've thought about being an and forcing her to leave, but that might lead to divorce. I really need some advice. Thank you all. Oop, this helps me a lot, thank you for your words. Oop, I would hate myself if this scenario really happens, you have a point. Thank you. It happens so easily and subconsciously. All of my ex-boyfriends are exactly like my dad, but my husband is exactly like my stepdad. I emulated the toxic relationship my parents had without realizing it, and then when my mom showed me a good husband and father in a healthy relationship, again without trying or realizing it, I found it for myself. Once I saw her in a good marriage, it was jarring when someone was showing red flags because it wasn't normal to me, but before all I knew was toxicity, so the red flags didn't look so red. Why were what I was used to. Oop, good point. I'm starting to worry about that my daughter would estimate it unconsciously. I found out my wife posted about our situation on Reddit, so I thought I should share my side too. I lost my job in May and wanted some free time because life after having a baby feels suffocating. I've always been a free spirit, working and traveling, and then I met my wife, Jay. This lifestyle continued, and we traveled a lot, from Tibet to Antarctica. I was a seller, and she had a great business selling replica bags, making enough for us to enjoy our lives. We hit it off, got married, and had a great time together. We even considered being child-free and consulted an older couple on an Antarctic cruise, whose happiness convinced me this could be our future. The thing is, my mom really wanted a grandchild. At the time, I didn't think much of it and felt it wasn't a big deal, so I discussed it with my wife, and we decided to go ahead. Her pregnancy was tough, she had severe morning sickness, and I felt really sorry for her. After the baby was born, she wanted to focus on the baby, and I agreed to hold the family burden alone. Life then became all about work, with no more traveling or other interesting stuff. So last month, I had enough. No more working, no more baby duties, and we agreed to give me a trial break. The past month was quite healing until one day she got mad and suddenly gave me an ultimatum of divorce. I didn't want a divorce, so I started doing housework, which I wasn't prepared for. Then last week, my wife came home and asked me to talk, showing me her post about us in this sub. She said millions of people had read it and called me an immature. I was pretty upset and asked my mother to help with the housework so my wife would be relieved and, to be honest, to call her bluff. She's not happy, of course, and neither am I. We've barely talked since then, kind of a cold fight. These days, I've caught her several times watching her phone for a long time and sometimes crying. I believe she posted about us again, and I've been waiting for her to talk even though I wanted to start the conversation but got cold feet feeling the tension in the family. Update 2. I've been hesitating because we had a great time, and I have been loving you. I didn't talk to you these days because I wanted to see if you would send your mother home and talk. I update now because, as you said in the post, I see you and want everyone, especially those who told me you might have been depressed, to see you. I can't believe you'd rather defend yourself on Reddit than talk to me face to face. If that's how it is, let's do this. Update 3. After my last post, I was in a weird state. I felt trapped in a limbo where talking to my husband seemed futile, but the thought of divorce felt like an invisible hand was squeezing my throat, making me hard to breathe. I decided to make an appointment with my psychologist, who has known my childhood and understands my background, including my adoption and family dynamics. Yes, I am adopted. Although my adoptive parents treated me very well, I generally don't like to talk about it. Before I had my child, I specifically consulted the psychologist because I was afraid that my unresolved issues might unconsciously affect my daughter. So, during our conversation, she pointed out that the child in me desperately longs for my biological parents, while the love from my adoptive parents makes me reject this idea. As a result, I am obsessed with maintaining the ideal biological family that I never had. This insight resonated deeply, making me realize why I had delayed taking decisive action for so long. After our session, I felt a strong urge to speak with an attorney about divorce. I wanted to prioritize my daughter's future over my illusory family unity. I gave the attorney all the necessary information and expressed my desire for a quick resolution. She informed me that the process could be completed in as little as a week if my husband agreed to cooperate, although it might take longer otherwise. She recommended that I discuss the matter with him to facilitate the process. So I have been planning in my mind to choose a day to confront him. During this period of hesitation, I came home one day to find that my mother-in-law had left. My husband had prepared dinner and apologized for his behavior. He admitted to being childish and expressed deep regret for his actions, acknowledging the negative feedback he received on Reddit. Realizing that so many people found his behavior unacceptable, he understood that he had been in the wrong. I reiterated that divorce might be the best option as I couldn't see a way forward together. In response, he handed me a letter taking full responsibility for the problems in our marriage and admitting his mistakes. He asked for one final chance to prove himself as a good husband and father, promising that if he failed, I could use the letter to proceed with the divorce at any time. After much hesitation, I agreed to give him this last chance and informed my attorney to hold off on the divorce proceedings for now. Although my attorney mentioned that the letter had no legal standing, she assured me she could handle the situation with or without it. For now, I'm cautiously optimistic, willing to see if my husband's efforts will lead to genuine change. If things don't improve, I'm prepared to take further steps to ensure my daughter grows up in a healthy and loving environment. I believe the decision is in my hands, and I am now determined to do what's best for my family. I want to thank everyone for their comments. They helped me see many options. I especially appreciate those who shared their life experiences, providing me with the strength to take action. By the way, I'm back to my bag business. Update 4. After my husband handed me the letter, we entered a strange phase of coexistence. On the surface, things seemed to improve. He started doing housework, picking up our daughter from daycare, and even cooked dinner a few times. It felt like he was trying, but something about it felt performative. His actions weren't consistent, and I noticed that whenever I wasn't around, things slipped back to how they were. For instance, I came home early one day to find him playing PS5 while our daughter was in front of the TV eating snacks. Nothing dangerous, but it showed me that his commitment might be more about appeasing me than genuine change. Then came the bombshell. My mother-in-law called me furious. She claimed I was ruining her son by making him work at home and that I was using my masculine energy to emasculate him. This was out of the blue, and it hit me hard. I asked her why she thought it was okay to meddle in our marriage, and she replied, "He's my son first, your husband second." That sentence lingered in my mind for days. It made me realize just how enmeshed their relationship still is and how much influence she has over him, even when she's not physically present. During this time, I went back to therapy, which has been a godsend. My therapist reminded me that I can't control my husband's relationship with his mother, but I can control how much I allow it to impact my life and my daughter's future. That was the clarity I needed. A few days later, I sat down with my husband for a serious conversation. I told him that his efforts, while appreciated, didn't feel sustainable or genuine. I also brought up his mother's comments and explained how her involvement was a deal-breaker for me. To my surprise, he didn't argue. Instead, he admitted that he felt torn between being the man I needed him to be and the son his mother expected him to be. He said he'd been using the letter as a way to buy time because he didn't know how to actually change. This honesty was refreshing, but it also broke my heart. I realized he wasn't ready to grow up, not for me, not for our daughter, and maybe not even for himself. That was the moment I knew I had to let go. I contacted my attorney the next day and told her to proceed with the divorce. This time, I didn't hesitate. When I told my husband, he looked stunned but didn't fight it. He said he kind of expected it and asked if we could keep things amicable for our daughter. I agreed, and we've started the process of separating our lives. As for my daughter, I've decided to move closer to my adoptive parents, who have been incredibly supportive throughout this ordeal. I want her to grow up in a stable environment surrounded by love, not tension. My bag business is thriving again, and it's given me a sense of independence and purpose that I haven't felt in years. This isn't the ending I envisioned when I married my husband, but it's the one I need to prioritize my well-being and my daughter's future. I've learned that love alone isn't enough. It takes mutual respect, effort, and a willingness to grow together. Without those things, even the strongest love can crumble. Update 5. It's been a few months since I made the decision to divorce, and I can honestly say I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Life hasn't been easy, change never is, but it's been a lot less exhausting. The first few weeks after the separation were filled with a whirlwind of emotions. There were times when I second-guessed myself, wondering if I made the right choice. The guilt would creep in, especially when I thought about our daughter and how she'd be affected. I didn't want to be the kind of mom who made her child grow up in a broken home, but I also didn't want to raise her in an environment where love was overshadowed by dysfunction. At first, my ex-husband and I tried to keep things cordial for our daughter's sake. We agreed on joint custody and established a schedule that worked for both of us. He moved into a small apartment close by, and I stayed with my parents. The first time he came to pick up our daughter, I saw a glimpse of the man I thought he could be. He was trying, genuinely trying, to be a good father, even if I wasn't sure he'd ever be the partner I needed. As the weeks went on, things started to settle into a new rhythm. I focused on my business, which has been growing faster than I ever anticipated. I'm not going to lie, it feels good to be thriving again. I remember those nights when I was so drained, wondering how I could ever find the energy to rebuild myself. But I did, and I'm stronger for it. My daughter is adjusting too. She loves spending time with her dad, and she's also bonding even more with my adoptive parents, who have been a constant support. I've noticed a new calmness in her, like she can sense that the chaos is settled. I think we're all finding our new normal. As for my ex-husband, we've had a few more conversations. At first, I didn't want to hear anything from him, but over time, I've realized he's genuinely trying to change, even if it's a slow process. He admitted that he's been seeing a therapist and working through a lot of his issues, including his relationship with his mother and his fear of commitment. I don't know if we'll ever get back together. Frankly, I don't want to be stuck in that same cycle again, but I'm relieved that he's doing the work. I'm proud of him for taking those steps, even if it's not with me. I've come to a place of peace with my decision. Divorce isn't a failure, it's just a chapter in a bigger story. For a while, I held on to the idea of preserving the family unit, but I've learned that it's okay to redefine what family means. My family now consists of me, my daughter, my adoptive parents, and the amazing people who have supported me along the way. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I'm on the right path. I've learned so much about myself, about what I'm willing to tolerate, what I'm not, and how to stand up for myself without feeling selfish. And for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful. I can't predict where life will take me, but I'm ready for whatever comes next. Thank you to everyone who's followed my journey and offered advice and encouragement. It's meant the world to me. Now on to second story. Refused my roommate's boyfriend's ridiculous roommate test demands. Now she's threatening to replace me with someone more supportive. I, 19F, live with my roommate, let's call her Ashley, 20F, in a small 2-bedroom apartment. We've been friends since high school and decided to split rent when we both started college. Things were fine at first, but then she started dating Jake, 22M. At first, he was over just a couple of nights a week, which I didn't mind. But over the past few months, he's basically moved in, eating our food, using our stuff, and not contributing a single dime to rent or bills. I finally had enough and told Ashley that Jake either needed to start paying his share or stop practically living here. She apologized and said she'd talk to him. I thought that was the end of it. Fast forward to last week. I was getting ready to head out to a late-night study group when Jake cornered me in the kitchen. He told me he wanted to test me to see if I'd be a good person to live with full-time. I was confused and asked what he meant. He said that if I wanted him to pay rent, I had to prove I was roommate material by showing I could handle sharing the space with someone like him. He then gave me a list of rules he'd want me to follow if he officially moved in, things like doing my share of the cooking, even though I already make my own meals, not bringing any guys over, I'm single, but why is that even relevant? And being respectful of his gaming time by keeping the Wi-Fi free during his streams. I laughed in his face and told him there was no way he was moving in. He got pissed and told Ashley I was being unreasonable. She confronted me and said Jake was just testing the waters and that I should have been more open to the EA. She accused me of being jealous because I'm single and suggested I was trying to sabotage their relationship. Now she's saying if I can't be supportive, then maybe she should get a new roommate, one who respects her relationship. I think this is completely insane, but Ashley and a couple of her friends are siding with Jake. They're calling me selfish and controlling. Ida for refusing to let him move in after his ridiculous test? Oop, thank you for the advice. I will start to document everything from now on. Any other advice I should do as well? Oop, yeah, he gets really emotional when it comes to his gaming time. Update 1. It helped me see things in a completely new light. Honestly, I didn't even realize how much I was being gaslighted by Jake and Ashley until I read some of your insights. I thought they were my friends, but now I see how manipulative and toxic their behavior really is. Maybe I just hated the thought of not having any friends, but who needs enemies with these kind of friends? NGL, it still breaks my heart to realize this and I cried a lot. But that doesn't change anything, haha. I don't know why I'm saying this, it's just been a really emotional days, please forgive my rant. Since our confrontation, Jake has gone full victim mode. He's been telling mutual friends that I'm trying to ruin his life and kick him out of his girlfriend's apartment. Let me remind you, this man doesn't pay rent or contribute to any bills, so calling it his girlfriend's apartment is already laughable. He's been painting me as some controlling, jealous monster who can't handle his straightforward personality. Meanwhile, Ashley is eating it up and defending him, saying I'm overreacting and causing unnecessary drama. What's worse is that I've started noticing just how much control Jake has over Ashley. She's completely bought into his narrative and is now acting like I'm the enemy. For example, she told me last night that my attitude is making it hard for them to feel comfortable in their own home. They're home. This apartment is 50% mine, but suddenly, I'm being treated like an unwelcome guest. I've decided I've had enough. I've already documented everything. His constant presence, his freeloading, and now his smear campaign. I'm reaching out to my landlord this week. Most leases have clauses about long-term guests, and Jake has definitely overstayed his. As for Ashley, I don't know if there's any saving our friendship. I'm heartbroken because I thought she cared about me, but now I realize she's supporting Jake's abusive behavior. Thank you to everyone who opened my eyes to what was really happening. I'll post another update once I've spoken to my landlord and taken further action. For now, I'm just trying to reclaim my space. And my peace of mind. Also, I really want to thank you for just caring and being there. This is what I needed to hear, and you all were honest and fair with me. I am very grateful for the support I got that I couldn't get anywhere else. Update 2. Hi everyone. I wanted to come back with a final update now that everything has been resolved. It's been a whirlwind, but I can finally say that I'm in a much better place, and I'm so grateful to everyone who supported me along the way. After my last update, I contacted the landlord and explained the situation. Turns out, Jake had violated the guest policy in our lease by staying over so often. The landlord was understanding and firm. Jake couldn't stay overnight anymore, and if Ashley wanted to add him to the lease, we'd need to renegotiate everything, including his share of the rent and utilities. When I shared this with Ashley, she was furious at first. She accused me of trying to sabotage her relationship and even said I was acting petty. But as the reality of the situation set in, something shifted. I think for the first time, she saw how much Jake's presence had disrupted our lives, and how much it had hurt me. To my surprise, Ashley apologized. She admitted that she had been blinded by her feelings for Jake and hadn't considered how unfair her actions were. She said she needed to reevaluate things with him and asked for some space to think. Over the next week, Jake stopped coming over. Ashley and I had a long, heartfelt conversation, and for the first time in weeks, it felt like I was talking to my old friend again. She admitted that Jake's controlling behavior wasn't sitting right with her anymore and that she felt like she'd been losing herself trying to please him. And here's the best part, Ashley broke up with Jake. She realized he was manipulative and toxic, not just to me but to her as well. She thanked me for standing my ground and helping her see the situation clearly. We're still working on rebuilding our friendship, but things feel so much lighter now that he's out of the picture. The apartment is peaceful again, and I've even started redecorating to make the space feel more like home. Ashley and I are taking things one day at a time, but we've both agreed to prioritize communication and respect moving forward. I know not every story ends this way, but I'm so grateful mine did. Thank you to everyone who encouraged me to stand up for myself. It made all the difference. Without you I would be living in hell now.